and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. Join us for interviews, updates and chat with artists, influencers and those that manufacture the gear that we love. Hello and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast from the guys behind the Guitar Show UK. And we are on episode 20. Episode 20.
Or 19B, if you
or
like.
Or 19B, which sounds like where Paddington lived, on whatever that road was in London. Where did Paddington live? Acacia Gardens or something? Or was that Banana Man? That might have been Banana Man. Anyway, get back on track. Can you tell that we're both sleep deprived? So we've got the second part of our conversation with Christophe Fantana, Sounds Like Spanner.
Yeah.
And there's another 45 minutes of quite insightful chat, actually, I thought, in this, particularly in this second half of this, where we start, I think we get almost philosophical in places.
About amp sounds.
Amp sounds and about you know, pop with different kind of guitar-based, you know, rappers to it, and that was quite insightful. And about country music and you know why they're starting to use British amps and stuff you wouldn't expect in country music. So I thought it was quite insightful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't sound convinced.
No, I do.
Right.
I do. I'm very convinced.
Right.
I did some research following our conversation with Chris. I dug out my copy of the Burst. The one that I thought was in 5 episodes is actually the Burst Believers, but the one that Chris was talking about was the Beauty of the Burst. You did get the page number wrong though. The Rift Sawn Top is on page 65. It's Les Paul 90839.
Right.
As its serial number.
Well, we ought to put a picture out of that. Will we get sued for that? Will you get sued for that?
Well, a distinct possibility, but maybe if I tag in Yashuiko Iwandi, however you pronounce it, from The Beauty of the Burst,
well,
maybe he would just like us to mention his book.
Well, we're bound to get sued now.
From the pronunciation of his name.
So if it was in two minds before, assuming it's a he, of course, because we've both assumed it's a he. Assuming it's a he, I think it's going to get litigious very quickly. I would have thought, and we've split the interview literally into two. So we come back in at a point where I'm picking up on something that Chris had said last week about you should want to play the guitars that you own. The guitars you own, you should, when you walk past them, you should almost have to stop everything to pick up that guitar. And that was the bit we were talking about that I start off in response to this week. So if you'd forgotten where we'd got to, then because we can't do it like Designated Survivor, where we so far in Designated Survivor we can't do that.
Have you watched all of that?
Yeah.
It starts off as a really interesting premise. And by the 3rd or 4th series, it's just utter tosh.
Yeah, it is.
But I was so involved at that point that I had to watch it to the end, and I hated every minute of every hour of every episode I watched just to get to the end.
One of the problems with Netflix is that, and all the streaming services, is that you don't often know when you go from the end of one series to the start of another. So I sailed through the end of Series 1 into Series 2 without really noticing. So I enjoyed...
Yeah, because it's a logical follow-on.
Yes, yeah.
Series 2.
So I kind of enjoyed... Series probably 1.5, possibly even to the end of Series 2. And then you're right, it derailed very, very quickly. Saying that, I can't wait for Series 3 of Cobra Kai.
No, I've only watched Series 1 of that so far and thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt the same about Sons of Anarchy.
Right.
I loved it at the start, and by the end of Series 6, It was so crap.
Yeah.
I just can't describe how terrible it was. But I had to watch it to find out how it ended.
Have we had this conversation about Luther? Because I watched Luther, I kind of binged Luther over a period of a few sort of weeks, or probably might have been days rather than weeks. And it's 5 series, I think, Luther. And the problem with Luther is when you get to the end, you realise that the best series is series 1. Okay, well, that's not unusual, and that's not unlike what we're talking about. But that actually the best episode in series 1 is episode 1. And it gets no better than that. It gets no better than that first episode and that first series. And it's watchable, but when you get to that point at the end and you go, do you know what? It peaked. Episode 1, it peaked. It was never as good as at that point. And I kept waiting for it to be that good again, and it wasn't.
Yeah. I've just watched the last episode of the latest series of Lucifer, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. And I've just started on, what's it called? The Long Way Up.
Right.
Charlie Borman and...
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor. Going from, is it Chile, all the way through up to Los Angeles for Christmas dinner.
Yeah. Because that's where you go for Christmas dinner, isn't it? LA. It's exactly where you go for Christmas dinner.
Yeah, because they arrive like 3 months before Christmas in Chile and it's snowing.
And they get to LA
and it's brilliant sunshine.
Trying to find turkey.
But I can't do multiple series at the same time.
Right.
It just confuses me. I've just got to pick one and go through that.
I'm like that, but I'm like that with sandwiches and crisps.
Hey?
So Alison can eat a sandwich and open a crisps and eat a crisp and the sandwich at the same time. I have to eat my sandwich and then eat my crisps.
Oh no, I'm definitely with your wife on this.
Are you?
Yeah, completely.
Well, you've proper gone down in my estimations now. No,
it's about variety of flavours in your mouth.
No, you've got to finish your sandwich and then start your crisps.
Oh, I'd like to give a shout out to Aldi's Chardonnay and sea salt crisps.
Right.
The Chardonnay vinegar one, they're so vinegary. Right. Honestly, the other day I sat there and my eyes were watering, going, I'm really enjoying this.
I bet if Christophe's tuning in, he's over the moon with this epic lead-in to the second part of his interview.
Yeah, should we go on?
Yeah, and Christophe, if you can come back and let us know. Sorry, I'll stop calling him Christophe. Chris, if you can come back and let us know what you do with regard to crisps and sandwiches, that would be very much appreciated. So here it is, the second part of the interview with Chris from Rift, and we'll see you at the other end. When you said, right, you shouldn't be able to walk past your guitar without wanting to play it. And I've got a Japanese 62 reissue that's a 1986, and I bought it in 93. So I bought it second hand in 93. And that's the one that I just come back to. And what's happened in all that time is there's lots of other Strats and Tellys that have gone through my hands. And now to the point where I've only got that. Because after spending and losing lots of money, I've realised that I'm just going to keep coming back to that guitar. And there's no point fighting it. There's absolutely no point fighting it at all.
And it doesn't have to be a super expensive vintage guitar. It doesn't have to be a high-end custom shop thing. It can be a mid-range thing. But if that guitar speaks to you and you can't do anything else, you've got to put your cup of tea down. You've got to stop yourself in your tracks just to play a lick on that guitar every time you see it. That's the answer. That's the guitar for you.
And if you'd said to me, to look at it, is that your guitar? I would say no, because in my head, my idea is a Strat with a maple neck, and that's got a rosewood board.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
But I've never had a guitar that's played anything like that one, and I will always gravitate to a maple board, always.
And is that the snap? Do you mind if I ask? Is that the snappiness of it, or is it just an aesthetic thing?
It's an aesthetic thing.
Okay.
See, I got rosewood boards on a Strat for the aesthetic thing of it. It's weird. It's weird, but more than convinced that most of what we hear is with our eyes.
Yeah.
Well, it is a big part of it now, I think. I mean, there are some guitar colours that I've seen, but even if it's the best sounding guitar in the world, I'm not gonna be seen dead with it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, my mate Paul, who I share a building with, where my business is, he loves gems, absolutely loves gems. I mean, he's got several of them, and even if it was the perfect guitar for me, I couldn't play one. they just don't do anything for me. I think they look ridiculous, but he loves them. You know,
I can't get on with the super flat fretboards they've got. I mean, what's the radius on them?
16.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Yeah. It's almost like a classical guitar in how flat it is.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. I can't get on with it. But then again, I prefer 7.25 inch on Telecasters. So, I'm completely the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's the only issue. My Strat's got a 7.25, and I don't get up the dusty end very often, but it does kind of frustrate me that it chokes out a little bit. So, and I don't really play solos. I've never really played solos. I don't know how to play solos.
I that's what I did as a young guitarist. I called myself a rhythm guitarist. I focused on rhythm playing, and being part of the drum and bass section of a band, as you might call it, rather than focusing on licks. And it was all of those guitar players that really shaped my own guitar playing. Those really good rhythm players like John Lennon, like Kelly Jones and the Stereophonics, and all those guys who weren't what you might consider to be virtuoso shredders by any stretch of the imagination, but they're still very technical and very good on guitar, especially playing rhythm stuff. But yeah, no, I completely get that.
I mean, when I was a sort of like early teen, mid-teen, I wanted to be Malcolm, not Angus. I wanted to be Izzy, not Slash. I don't know. It's something about actually the rhythm guitarist carries the song. The lead guitarist just whittles over the top of it, and gets the 16 bars of glory in the middle, and then.
If you ever get a chance to see Iron Maiden live, obviously they've got the three guitarists, and just from a guitar's point of view, if you watch what the other two are doing whilst there's a solo going on and the other guy is wailing away, it's incredible what they're doing, and that really makes it. And of course, with three guitarists, they're fighting for all sorts of sonic spaces, but they make it work. And I think it's kind of a masterclass in rhythm guitar when you see what they do. And of course, they're running around stage doing all that stuff. I find it incredible.
I find it incredible that they are probably in their 60s now, I would imagine, given that Iron Maiden started in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah, they must be.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on. Things. I need to ask you, Jason, and Ant, actually. We'll start with Ant, because why not? Tell us about your dream amp, then.
Oh, about my dream amp.
Well, if you rang me up tomorrow and said, I want you to build me this amp, what would it be? Well,
that's that's interesting, because I'm gonna then take you to what I said earlier on about the player. So if you, I mean, the two sounds for me, and these are wildly different actually, in terms of there's something about the tone that Richards gets now. I don't mean back then, I mean now. There's something about, he's got a clean tone now that is just something else. So if you hear some of the stuff in rehearsals and what have you, he's just got this beautiful. There's a bit on Jay, you'll have seen it. You know the 5x5 thing. There's a bit of them, and they're doing they're working out a chord sequence to Mixed Emotions, and there's a tone that Richards has got there that's just absolutely beautiful, and it's clean and it's rich and it's full and it just sounds amazing. So there's something about that kind of tone that is clean and rhythm, and it's a little bit like that tone that Bryan Adams gets on Run to You on the chord bit in the middle. where he's got that chord riff. It's just something like that, where it's a powerful, clean tone. So there's something there, and then totally off on the other side, which is going to make it virtually impossible for you to build this thing. I want to sound like Steve Rothery, please, but not Steve Rothery necessarily lead Steve Rothery. I want to sound like Steve Rothery, delayed, chorusy, the rhythmy stuff, Steve Rothery. Which is obviously, that's based around a JC120, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
So they are two totally different things. So I want to be able to pick up two guitars, a telly and something, probably Strat-esque with a some kind of hotter pickup in it, and I want to do those two sounds. So I want that kind of clean Richards, not even the necessarily the classic period, but there's this tone he's got now that's just fantastic.
I think he's playing the old tweed Fenders, isn't he?
He is.
With the
Doesn't he have
speakers.
serial number 3 or something of it? I'm sure I
think
read
so.
that.
Yeah.
If that's the case, who in the world has got 2 and 1 then?
Well, I don't think that, because he's been collecting them. He's got his guitar tech is French. I can't remember his name. But basically, his job when the Stones are on tour is to go around the world and find these amps, because they're so fragile. But he insists on taking them on the road, that they have to have multiple backups of them.
Yeah, but you see, I respect that. And that's the whole Bonamassa thing, isn't it? He's taking these high end gear out so people can hear it being played.
Yeah.
And I absolutely respect that. I can't fault the guy. Yeah, well up for that.
Oh, and it helps that you're a multi-millionaire and can afford to take out your own amp tech on tour with you.
Yeah.
And you can send what's his name? Anyway, you can send him out when you're not on tour to go and find them. They've come to the conclusion that number 1 and number 2 have been destroyed over the years, which is probably likely.
Well, number 1 was probably a sales model that went out on the road to dealers as a demo, probably. And then number 2 was either a backup for that or it was sold. But yeah. But you can't trust those early serial numbers like that anyway. Who knows? Yeah.
I mean, it's the sort of thing, when companies start their invoices at 1001, so it looks like they've had business before the first order that they actually have.
Shh, you're giving away the secrets, Jason.
Jason, I think you might have invoice 1001 from me, so don't. You've done it to both of us now.
Yeah.
I started
Jason.
at 1.
Dream amp, Jason.
Okay, so currently my setup via what's it called, a radial tone bone pedal. So
is that the ABY?
Yeah. So I can have both on at the same time. Is that I've got a Marshall SV20H? Is that what it's called? Part of their new, the little new vintage amps that they're doing. So it's the Super Lead, but it's called the Studio Vintage, I think. Into my Lazy J J20, and the two of them on together gives me, I don't know, the warmth from the Lazy J, but the bite from the Marshall at the same time. And I only did that. I've had many amps, but I'd never bought an ABY pedal. But when I was chatting to Phil X, as you do, over a curry, with you and Mick Taylor, and he gave me a really long explanation about why his rider for the guitar show was a JCM 800 and a Fender Anything. We got him a bass breaker, which he seemed quite happy with, at the same time, and I was kind of intrigued, and for the cost of a pedal to be able to do it, and I bought the radial one because it got the lift switch.
It's got the ground lift and the polarity switch. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I've been doing it for years. In fact, it was seeing Phil X at the Boiler Room in Guildford many moons ago, and I saw him doing it there, doing the whole ABY thing, 2 amps, dual mono, 2 amps on at once, and then he'd have a boost just going to 1 amp, so he could then push it a little bit further as well. It was just because everything sums together, but only the good bits sum together. Yeah, so you never it's because you'd worry that all you'd hear is the bad bits of both amps summed together, but actually no, it's only ever the good bits. And you can find some really complementary amp combinations that just sound incredible. So I've been doing it for years, and that's my main thing. And it's better than a boost pedal, kicking another amp instead.
It's great, isn't it? In fact, I've got the pedal board that Phil used here. That I should probably give away at some point via the podcast. He took a pedal board off me at the show and at the show, and then went, "Can I go on tour with it?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course you can. I'll give it you back at the end." So we'll give that away at some point.
Took the piss a little bit, didn't he? What with the extra arm, Brad, and the the pedal board.
Yeah, well, you know,
it's LA rock stars. They just don't know their place, do they?
They don't. Wouldn't have in Tamworth that. But But so was that a piece of genuine market research, or is an amp going to appear at my door in about a year?
Well, if you get your credit card out, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
No, I just find it interesting because a lot of people, when you ask them that question, they don't know. They really don't know. They really struggle to think, what would be my dream amp.
It has changed though, depending on which band I've been in.
Well, this is exactly my next follow-up point, because I once built my dream amp, and then a couple of weeks later, it was no longer my dream amp because I was onto something else.
Yeah, I mean, I played in for want of a better description, punk and roll. It wasn't really a shouty punk band. It was kind of like a New York Dolzy kind of rock and roll band. But I was the only guitarist, and I had a dual Terror at the time. And it was brilliant because it just filled that middle sound. But as soon as I started playing, I suppose, Americana type stuff, it just didn't work at all. I couldn't get a light enough sound from it. Yes, you do an Americana amp.
No, that was Adrian Thorpe just driving past. The Major. For those that don't know, our workshops are next door to each other here on the farm.
Have you got the good one, or has he got the good one?
Well, mine's got the indoor toilet. His has got an external toilet, and I've got more windows. So
his is shit then, really.
So that's what Matt Gleason said. He says you can judge your success by how many windows your workshop has.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, and I've got 4 windows here, so I must be doing reasonably well. Well, Adrian's only got 2 windows.
Wow. My office has no windows.
Yeah, my office has got no windows. I've got no windows. That's why when we do these podcasts at night, it just gets darker and darker and darker. You look exactly the same, and we just get darker.
Yeah,
all the time. Now, I must admit, it's interesting what you said there, because actually thinking about it now I've described what I would have liked. That kind of clean sound that could punctuate things like Tom Petty, or could punctuate things like, because I was into the Alarm for a while, but that would also work with the Bryan Adams thing, that works with the Stones thing. I can see how that's consistently gone all the way through, actually, in my kind of, so that bit, I can identify that sound in 6, 8, 10 artists that I like. But the Steve Rothery one is very, I suppose you could say, yeah, it's Rothery and it's Gilmour and it's a couple of others. But I mean, for me, it's Rothery, but that kind of delayed, chorusy, jangly, But interesting.
I did realise that I've actually, if you said to me, who have been your guitar heroes over the years, it's effectively the same person, just in different skin.
Yeah, so that's actually really fair. That's a really fair point.
I think I've got Keith Richards, who's really just Chuck Berry. I've got Johnny Thunders, who's really just Keith Richards. I've got Andy McCoy from Hanoi Rocks, who's really just Johnny Thunders. And I've got Izzy Stradlin, who's really just Andy McCoy. It's just, they're all just Chuck Berry. but in raggedy gypsy clothes.
The one that's out for me in all of that, if I think back to that kind of thing, that doesn't really fit is Richard Hawley. He's the one that just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And that's that's a huge tone thing as well. But that takes us a little bit back to rockabilly, doesn't it?
But it's big Gretches, isn't it?
Big Gretches. You know.
So both of you have mentioned dream amps that achieve tones someone else's sound. Really. But what's your sound?
Mine is
if you weren't trying to chase someone else's guitar tone or trying to achieve someone else's tone, what gear would you play?
I stopped chasing other people's tone. A couple of years ago, the band that I was in sort of like split up is too strong a word, drifted apart. And God, I sound like such a twat now. I recorded a solo album on my own.
You tend to have to.
Yeah. And for the first time ever, I was stood in a recording studio that I was paying for with an engineer / producer going, how do you want it to sound? And going, and kind of we went away, and I kind of did him a CD of kind of stuff that I really liked, and we just kind of worked from that. So I think my sound now, over the last probably 4 years, is my sound, and it is that I don't play with any distortion at all really now. I just like to play with a bit of crunch. But I think it works really well for a wide open rhythm guitar part, which is what I play.
I think as a guitar exercise, it's really interesting to do. Is to sit down and say to yourself, "What is my own tone?" You know, one of my customers is a huge Dave Gilmour fan, and all of his gear for years has been Dave Gilmour's gear. You know, all the Pete Cornish pedals set exactly right, all the amps, you know, all the right guitars with the right strings on,
I know
everything.
Who you mean.
And recently, he's decided that he wants to do his own sound, and he's gone in a completely different direction to what I ever thought he would. And do you know what? His tone is 10 times better than it was before, and his playing is better. And so it's a really, really interesting exercise to do. Is to what actually is my tone, rather than chasing someone else's. Where does that take me?
Do you know what? That also talks to the fact that naturally I can't play very well like the people that I would say are my heroes. So you try to mimic it.
Yeah.
You try to mimic it, but I can't do it. I actually can't do it. I can make a reasonable approximation, but it's only a reasonable approximation. And yet other stuff, when I'm playing, you know, naturally, and then suddenly when you start to play naturally, you realise that the sound that you've got and what you're going for is not using any of the component parts that your influencers are using. Because it just doesn't work. And I have to say, Chase, I'm a bit with you that I end up on a light crunch tone, you know, and particularly if I'm messing about trying to write something, end up with something that's a lot different to what I would have said that my influences would be.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that because I've been doing some recording lately, in a different studio, which has been absolutely brilliant. I was recording on Friday, and it's been really interesting to just service the song rather than this is my setup, so this is what I play. You know, I'm fortunate enough that, as you've seen, I've got quite a selection of guitars. So I've gone, actually, this guitar needs a Les Paul. No, this one needs a Telecaster. No, this one needs a Strat. And I don't think you get that when you play live because, you know, I haven't got a roadie that can, you know, be waiting on the wings to chuck me another guitar and stuff like that. And you just... And I also think I've been lucky. No, that's the wrong word. I've never, ever played covers. In fact, I can't play anybody else's songs. I can stumble through a couple of Rolling Stones songs, and that's about it. So I've never chased anybody else's tone like that because I've never had to replicate it.
But isn't it fascinating how many guitarists do, and that's all they do?
Yeah.
What's your ideal guitar sound? Well, I want to sound like Slash, right? But you're not Slash.
Yeah.
What's your, or going back to the Hank Marvin and the Shadow stuff. Those guys, they spend fortunes. A ridiculous amount of money trying to get that tone. And I often think, what does that guitarist actually sound like when he's doing his own thing?
Oh, I can help you with that. I can help you with that, and I can tell you what they don't sound like.
But I never wanted to. Whilst when I was a teenager, I kind of really idolised a lot of rock bands, which is why I started playing the guitar. I wanted to do that. I never wanted to play their songs. If you know what I mean, it just wasn't. No. I don't see the point. I genuinely don't see the point of learning someone else's parts. I'd rather write my own. Which I am fully aware is out of step with how most guitarists learn, and I probably would be a lot better if I'd learned how to play other people's songs and practice them, but it just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a difference between learning to play another song convincingly and being being it tonally correct to the nearest millionth of a percent, as some people do, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I just as I said, as an exercise, it's really interesting to discover your own tone and to put everything else aside and almost start again with a blank sheet of paper and say, right.
And I did that with my pedal board as well. I just took everything off and sort of laid them out and was like, am I happy with this one? No. That goes. Am I happy with this one? Yes, it stays. And then I kind of went, what gaps have I got?
Yeah.
And Jen just bought a couple of pedals. Initially, I bought some second-hand ones that are a bit battered off eBay just to see if I kind of like that. Or I remember buying a Behringer delay pedal. I've never played with a delay pedal in my life. Bought a Behringer one for like 25 quid. Okay, I can kind of see the use of that. I think I might need a better version of it. But, so that was kind of like how I built my current pedal board, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done it too many times now. I don't know what my tone is, but I know what I want for my gear, so I guess that's one thing.
It's difficult as well, isn't it? Because you're trying to build amps that sound very different. So therefore...
Yeah. I mean, and that's an interesting thing as well. Lately... we're circling back to my originals line of amplifiers now. They're not trying to sound like a particular amplifier of the past. They're trying to capture a particular sound of an era or a genre or something. For example, I'm really into country music. And Americana. It's a big thing of mine. And I'm looking at some of the modern guitar heroes in country music.
Yeah.
Guys like Brad Paisley, Keith Urban, the guys in the Zac Brown band. And you would think they're all playing Telecasters into Tweed amps because that's the classic country sound. And actually, do you know what? That they're playing anything but those things. Yet they still get what everyone would consider to be quintessential country guitar sound.
Yeah.
And the more I looked into it, most of them are playing British voiced amps, which completely blew my mind.
What blew my mind a couple of years ago was Laney were telling me that they go out to Nashville quite often. I was like, really? Laney, the sound of heavy metal, is out in Nashville.
But there you go. But you see, but I think I understand that because a lot of those really heavy metal high gain amps have got a really nice clean tone.
Yeah.
And if that twangs and it chicken picks, guess what? They're going to use it.
Yeah.
Because if the glove fits or the hat fits or whatever the phrase is. But yeah, it was actually on YouTube, and I was searching for. So my dream guitar is a 52 gold top, Les Paul gold top.
Okay.
You know, I want an early one with the unbound neck.
Around?
It's got the trapeze, and it's got the neck angle is incorrect, as they say now. But I've always wanted an early 52 gold top. That's my... Anyway, I was searching YouTube for demos of one, and one came up, and it was 52 gold top into high watt. That was all the video was called. And I clicked on it, and it was actually the opening song from a live show that Keith Urban did, where he's playing a 52 gold top into a high watt. And that tone was something else. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was kind of a mix between country music and pub rock, which is right up my street. But yeah, it was, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, that's not a Telecaster into a Tweed Bassman. That is a Les Paul. All right, it's P90s, but it's a Les Paul into a high wall, which is, I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that would be used in country music.
No.
But yeah, so
saying
anyway,
that though, it's interesting with the names that you've kicked out there, because I've always had a little bit of a kind of a view that pop, to a certain extent, there's always been a guitar-based version of pop, and depending on the era, will depend on what it then gets defined as. So if you go back to what the guitar-based version of pop was in the mid-70s, actually we now call that glam to a certain extent. And if you look at what the guitar-based version of pop was in, say, the early 80s, we now call that hair rock, or we call it soft metal. And then you've got the Britpop being, a genre, when in reality all these were just good pop songs. And it was just that was the guitar sheen that was on them at the time. Does that, so if you listen to, I guess the great example is that Mutt Lange goes from producing Def Leppard to producing Bryan Adams to producing Shania Twain. The material's actually virtually the same. There's not a lot between...
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
What's on Hysteria to what's on Waking Up the Neighbours to what's on whatever the name of that Shania Twain album was that went stratospheric. The guitar works similar across the board, maybe a little bit more whittle on the Leopard stuff, but the point being, it's a different wrapper for essentially what is the guitar-based pop of the day. And as I say, pick your genre, pick your era, and then we name it something different. So it's glam, or it's metal, or it's soft metal, or it's metal, or it's rock, or it's country, or it's... But because I'm with you, if you listen to a lot of that, the kind of country stuff that's floating through at the moment, it's not really country, is it? It would have been 20 years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, it would have been Bryan Adams.
It would have been Bon Jovi.
Or Bon Jovi,
yeah.
or Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting point, because, I mean, there's... Country music is huge and is so diverse, and there's lots of different subgenres in it. But Nashville, on the pop side of it, has always been a couple of years behind what modern pop trends are. Yeah. So it's a southern cover act, as someone once called it. But no, I think you're right. It does. It's but with those guitar players, from a gear point of view, because of course Brad Paisley plays he's playing Dr. Z, Z-Rex, which are based on which was a train wreck design, which is based on a hot rodded Vox. So that's your link back to a British amp again. And then the more you see it, they're all playing British voiced amps, and I just found that whole thing fascinating. That it's you can get, if you're a good enough player, you'll get the tone out of anything.
My favourite tone out of that modern country thing is Jason Isbell.
Yes, yeah.
He's just. I know he's obsessive about tone. But it just, his latest album is incredibly stratty, but sounds great. And then his previous work was quite Les Paul-y. Is it Magnatone he plays? I think. But I get the impression that he'll play whatever suits the song, really.
Although interestingly, Chris Stapleton is one of the new breakout guys, but he's playing Fenders again. So maybe it's gone full circle.
Well, it's the murky world of endorsement deals, though, isn't it?
No, I didn't want to get into it, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what are they actually playing in the studio compared to, and what are they actually playing on stage? I mean, the amount of times that you've been and seen a band and they've got a backline of something, and you hear that there are other amps actually behind the stage, under the stage, that are actually being used. It's
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, I suppose an hour and 20 minutes in,
we've only had 3 questions from Jason.
yeah, we perhaps ought to think about wrapping this up. So
I hadn't asked about motorsport, which is the reason why we couldn't get you on before.
I was away racing. Yeah.
But
yes,
we'll come back to that on another day. Eh?
Well, I think we're going to have to do this. I think we're going to have to put a part 2 in for this, because we haven't really touched on probably half of what we were going to touch on.
No, I've got a page full of questions.
Well, let's have one more question, Jace. Come on,
make it a winner, Jace.
Make it a winner. No,
come on, one off the top.
I do want to talk about your motorsport, because it fills your Facebook pages and the live feed from the car.
Yeah, so last year, a friend and I bought a race car, decided to get our licences and join a racing club, the 750 Motor Club in this instance, and try a hand at motorsport. And it is, if you think guitar stuff is expensive, you are in for a big shock when it comes to motorsport, because even the cheapest motorsport, and they advertise it as budget racing, can get eye-wateringly expensive if you want to be even mildly competitive. But I absolutely love it, and it allows me to step away from thinking about valve amplifiers all day long, and focus my energy on something else.
So it's MX5s, isn't it?
So we bought an MX5. When you decide you want to go racing, you have to, the first decision that you make is whether you want to race front wheel drive or rear wheel drive cars, and that then puts you on into which series you're going to race in, what car you're going to buy, and all those type of things. And my friend Nick and myself, we decided we wanted to do rear wheel drive. And then from that, you've got a choice of a Mazda MX-5, a BMW compact, caterhams, and stuff like that. But if you want to not remortgage your house, it's got to be a Mazda MX-5, because you can buy a race prepped car for around $5,000. Your total license cost, including the gear you got to wear, you could do it for about $1,000, and then budget for about $6,000 a year to go racing as a minimum. So it is expensive, but then again, I've spent more than that in a year on guitar gear, so who knows?
It is great fun though, isn't it? The first event I ever ran was an event called Mini World, which wasn't about really small worlds. It was about the Mini, and it's a really confusing title. But it was about the old Mini, the 60s Mini. And it was brilliant.
We raced against one recently at Silverstone. I mean, I don't understand how they corner. I honestly don't, because they're on these small 12-inch wheels, and they literally got no floor footprint. They're so small. And this guy was 4-wheel drifting it around and all sorts. He was having a great time. Yeah.
One of the sort of things that I did as part of the event, I started. So I ran this thing at the NEC, and it had it was binary. That's how I remember it. 11,010 visitors for the first year, which was pretty good. And so I spent the next year sort of like gearing up to the next event, and you just go to lots of other sort of like little mini meets and mini racetracks. And I went to see the Mighty Minis race series several times. Went down to Brands Hatch to see him, and at Silverstone and stuff like that. I had a brilliant time, and I went to Santa Pod Raceway, which is drag strip. I don't know if you've ever- It's not far from you, is it? It's in North.
No, it's half an hour drive. Yeah.
And do you know Dave Walsh that runs Eternal Guitars?
I briefly met him.
Well,
But you know what it's like at a guitar show.
Yeah.
You meet everyone.
Well, Dave used to be the ad salesman for Mini World magazine.
Right.
20 years ago, sort of thing. From 25 years ago, probably. And Mini World magazine was sponsoring this event at Santa Pod Raceway. And they got a couple of their own Mighty Mini race cars there because they were sponsoring a series. And they kept saying to me, go down the track. And I hadn't got my driving licence with me, and you needed a driving licence to be able to do it. So I borrowed Dave Walsh's, learned how to forge his signature, sort of like for the 20 minutes before while I was stood in the queue, and raced twice down the drag strip. It was brilliant fun.
I mean, it's beyond. I mean, if you've ever been go karting, to a go kart track and a race, it's that amplified, by 10 easy. The adrenaline rush and everything that goes with it. It's one of my absolute favourite things to do, is to go hurtle around a Formula One spec track in a race car. And the thing is, track days are fun, but nothing beats going 3 wide round a corner in competition. It's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
I'd love to do
so
it.
we've got. This year's kind of ruined us a little bit, but we've got. I'm going to Snetterton which is out north in Norfolk in a couple of weeks' time, and then the week after we're back at Silverstone for a race called the Burkitt Relay, which is a 6-hour relay race.
Cool.
So we've got a team of 3 cars, 5 drivers, and you just how many laps you can do in 6 hours. One car goes out, does his laps, comes in, next car goes out, rinse and
Like
repeat.
a mini Le Mans.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's the traditional end of the club season, and they do it every year. But you can't be a novice. You've got to have completed 6 races in order to enter. And some of our drivers aren't quite there yet, so we're trying to get extra races in to get them up to get in. But that's been the dream for a long time. So yeah, we're looking to that, and then we've got Donington Park, and then I might be racing on Boxing Day at Mallory Park.
I like Mallory Park.
Yeah, I think it's a motorcycle
It is really
venue,
yeah.
but they hold every year on Boxing Day. They hold a race meeting there, and it's a great way to spend your Boxing Day. If you want to escape the in-laws. Yeah.
Cool.
So there you go. Yeah, and so I sponsor the car myself because free advertising.
It's a quarter. It's a 45-degree sawn car.
It certainly is. Yeah. Right.
Well, on that, I think we'll
Yeah.
call it a day. Chris, thanks for your time.
That's all right. I enjoyed it. A nice chat.
Oh, it's good to see you, mate.
Yeah, I do waffle on a lot. I do apologise, but
No,
That's all right. That's what the edit function's for when
Yeah.
Ant gets to it.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
honestly, the 4 people who listen to this will be okay with it. Honestly, it's fine. I'll ring them all beforehand and warn them. Tend to ring.
Just send out a disclaimer.
You know what? I was checking the chartable things today, and we've just fallen out of the Netherlands top 50 podcasts.
Outrageous, mate.
And I was like, why are we in the top 50 podcasts in the Netherlands?
You see, that's the real question, isn't it? How did you get in there in the first place?
Yeah. Who have I bribed? How much has this cost me?
Although, do you know what's really, really interesting? I've started selling an absolute ton of amplifiers to Scandinavian countries. And I thought all they did was death metal. But apparently vintage amps are all the rage over there. So who knows what's going on.
Well, what's your Icelandic ant? Did we get to
Well,
it?
yeah, we never got to that, did we? Because we did. I'd like to say we were well prepared and we'd done our homework, but we had found out And to be fair, it's Chris that's reminded of this. What Icelandic was for the big cheese, and it's Stora Ostin. That's the big cheese in Icelandic.
Stora Austin.
So
The thing is, I can't do an Icelandic accent, so it probably sounds like a really bad British accent trying to say the big cheese in Icelandic.
I think. Do you know what?
So anyone who is from Iceland listening to this,
Yeah.
Jason and I are really, really sorry. In the way we've just tried to say
But
the big cheese.
we do love Iceland.
We're really sorry. Full stop.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Say it one more time. I want to get the pronunciation right.
Okay. Well, I'm still going off what it says on here, but Stora Ostin.
See, I can't roll my R, so I don't think I could ever do it properly.
Well,
You're okay.
I don't know if I can. I think it's just the fact I said it first that probably makes you think that's how you're supposed to say it. I don't know if I've got it right.
Actually, I blame the teacher.
Well, don't worry. When you get to Reykjavik, they all speak English better than we do. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there we are. On Big Cheese in Icelandic, we will finish for this episode. As I say, thanks, Christophe.
Oh, Jason, you've got to send me an invoice for the naan bread before we forget.
Yeah, let's get that sorted as well, and hopefully we can come and see you soon. Hopefully we can pop along and
come down the workshop. You can see the mess in person.
Indeed, that sounds fab. Jace, I guess I'll speak to you very soon. Do we know who we've got on next, or is it a bit of a mystery?
It's a mystery to me. I haven't actually sorted it out yet. So
Right. Does that mean we should get Toya on?
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Sorry. We could get our other half on.
Robert Fripp.
Yeah.
I might email Keith Scott.
We need to get Keith Scott on. Chris, do you know Keith Scott?
I know Scott Keith. Does that help?
No. Well, not really. No.
Not unless we can interview him.
Well, there you go then. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Right. Keith Scott then, Jace. I'll leave it with you.
All right, mate.
And that was the second half of the interview with Chris, and I think that's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was insightful and it was funny, and it was a lovely way to while away an evening. So huge thanks to Chris for doing that. What a great guest.
Yeah, I really like chatting to Chris anyway. He's one of the exhibitors that I'll phone up just for a chat, not to talk about a guitar show or anything, but just for a chat because I just really like talking to him.
Oh, you can't not like talk to him. Not like talk to him. I mean, I'm going to be over the moon if my amp turns up, but I'm not expecting it. There seemed to be a very, very clear line there. You can have it if you like, but you're going to definitely have to pay for it. Which is fair enough. Which is fair enough.
We've given him 2 episodes of marketing here.
Yes. Yeah, all right. We'll see if we can equate a cost to that and see how many knobs that buys us. If you excuse the imagery. I've got one thing to say to you before we disappear.
Okay.
So this is episode 20.
Yeah.
It's not 19B, it is 20, really. It's going to go down as 20. Well, basically because the hosting platform we use doesn't have a 19A or B, so we couldn't be 19A or B, even if we wanted it to be. So we've started talking about our Jubilee episode, haven't we?
We have. Well, I think we should be... God, that'll be Christmas time, won't it? So it's every other week, 10 weeks. Which, where are we? First week of October. It will be, Christmas kind of special. Maybe we can wear a paper hat while we're recording it.
I think we should. But the bit I was going to say was, we just talked off air a little bit about this whole thing of Keith Scott. And, should we really make an effort to try and get Keith Scott on for 25?
I'm going to email him this week.
Right. Because you have said that a few times.
I know. To be fair, I've been incredibly busy with my other job.
Oh no, I'm not. I wasn't. I
was also
casting aspersions.
I was also
waiting on your commitment to the project.
Waiting to see if we could get to 20 episodes before I committed to actually emailing someone that I respect hugely Not that I haven't
Yes.
respected the other guests. That came out wrong.
Yes,
But,
yes, yes. Or me even.
Yeah.
But right. So Keith for 25 then.
Yeah, I'll try.
Keith for 25. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Fine. I think that makes sense. If anybody out there can help us with that, if any of you happen to live 3 doors down from Keith Scott's Auntie Mildred, then let us know.
Have we got any listeners in Canada? I don't think we have. We've got loads of listeners in America.
I guess Big Cheese in Canadian is just Big Cheese.
Well, it depends on which part of Canada you're from. It would be the Grand Fromage, wouldn't it?
I would. It would actually. Yes, you're right. You're right. If you're from that bit.
I don't know which part of Canada's from, but I purchased the other day off an Amazon reseller the Bryan Adams biography.
Oh, okay.
Which goes from the start. So, and given that Keith's been with him from the start.
From the start.
We've got 6 listeners in Canada, according to the Captivate website.
Or we've had 6 downloads in Canada.
6 downloads in Canada, which may be one person or it may be 6.
It could have been one person on a layover who was bored.
Yeah, so you never know, that 1/6 people might...
That 1/6 people. Yeah.
If only it told us which part of Canada.
I know. And whether they knew Keith Scott.
And whether they knew Keith Scott.
That would be helpful information. I'd be quite impressed if it did. Right, okay, so Keith Scott for 25 if we can do it.
Yeah, okay.
Right, okay. So we've got roughly 10 weeks, haven't we?
Got roughly 10 weeks.
And it would be probably a Christmas episode.
It would.
Right. In fact, it would be virtually absolutely a Christmas episode, thinking about it.
Christ, it's only 10 weeks to Christmas.
There's less than 4 weeks left of October, so you've got 4 weeks in November. So call it 8 weeks to the end of November. So 2 weeks. So that would take you to the 14th. It would be as near as damn it the Christmas episode.
God, does that mean we have to do one on Boxing Day or something?
We'd be like that. It'd be the Christmas episode. You know when you get the first Christmas specials that kick in about a week and a half before Christmas, and they're not the fools and horses ones. They're the kind of, the comedies that aren't that big.
Yeah.
But they do a Christmas episode and they get theirs like 10 days before Christmas. And then all the big shows get theirs on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. We'd be like that comedy.
We'd be like the support act.
Yeah, yeah. Or we're coming in just before Sports Person of the Year.
That's going to be weird this year, isn't it? Because we haven't really actually had much sport.
No. I don't know who's going to win it this year.
Well, yeah. Lewis Hamilton, probably.
Yeah, that's carried on. It's going to be Lewis or a footballer, isn't it? Or maybe a cricketer, but there wasn't really enough cricket, was there?
No, not really.
So, probably going to be Lewis, isn't it? He's going to win every category.
And overseas, as he lives in Monaco.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, he can win them all. Right, this is... We're working our way to overworked guff again, so shall we...
knock it on the head.
Should we knock it on the head?
Yes.
Right, okay, well, I'll see you next time.
All right, cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye. Thanks for listening to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. If you've enjoyed the show, then please remember to hit the subscribe button and share with other like-minded souls. For more information about 9 to 42, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at the Guitar Show UK. This has been an A Short Stories production.